It's way more than just getting people drunk and having a good time. It's about the fans. It's always been about bringing awesome music to Halifax for the fans.
All right, thank you so much. Glad to be here at your Halifax Pop Explosion. It's always a good time. It's always a good time.
It's awesome. One of its principal mandates is to showcase Maritime South.
It's pretty amazing. It's new, it's cutting edge, it's innovative.
It's the Halifax Pop Explosion, an annual international music festival and conference that takes place in the heart of Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's not been an easy road for the festival since it entered the scene in 1993, but nearly 20 years later, it's managed to emerge bigger and better than ever. I'm Leah Hassin, and I'll be exploring the ups and downs of the festival, its impact on the community, and where it's headed in the future. Peter Rowan was living in Fredericton, running a record label and putting on shows in the early 90s. A move to Halifax and working with talented local acts inspired him to find a way to showcase the scene. Peter, along with Greg Clark, Angie Fenwick, and Colin McKenzie, came up with the idea of starting a festival and bringing in big acts from places like New York and Toronto.
None of this would have happened without Angie Fenwick. Angie held it all together. I mean, she really did. I mean, because we were a bunch of fucking flakes. You know, we had this great idea, we're going to do this. Angie really held it together and held us together, gave us some focus.
Peter remembers the first Pop Explosion, held in September of 1993.
It was fun. It wasn't as epic as it became very quickly. I'm pretty sure we held most of it at the Double Deuce, maybe. Did a really small little program, just like a little sort of comic book program. It was still the sort of core group of people involved. So the first one was we brought Red Cross. I mean, we basically thought about the most ridiculous band that we could bring, like the band that made us the happiest in the world, and we all sort of agreed that Red Cross was this band, and we just didn't know better, called them and asked them, and got them. As I said, part of the whole mandate was to try to showcase our local talent in an international kind of format.
Wayne Mason was a young bartender at the Double Deuce in the fall of '93 and wasn't familiar with a bar-style festival. To him, a festival was 100,000 people watching big bands in a field. So when news of the Halifax Pop Explosion started spreading, he didn't know quite what to expect.
Suddenly there's something called the Halifax Pop Explosion. It's never happened before. It's like, oh good, we're going to have a busy week in the bar.
Way quickly discovered that the Halifax Pop Explosion was onto something after experiencing a weekend of acts like Lou Barlow, Eric Stripp, Velocity Girl, and Sloan.
There may have been a bit of a vibe like this is an alternative to the East Coast Music Awards and all the Celtic stuff. It's like, this is our thing. This is something where we can talk about contemporary music that's really cool and cutting edge and reflects the scene that's happening. They said pretty quickly after the first one they were going to do the second one.
For Peter, the Halifax Pop Explosion was a labor of love. The core group of people involved with the festival wanted to show the world how great the community was, but finding the money to bring in big acts wasn't always easy.
We paid for bands for winning from slot machines. I remember one of the years Angie and I won like $600 on Swingin' Bells the last day, and we were able to play Matt Murphy's band. We were friends with it. We took a huge emotional and financial bath in the first 4 years of the festival.
All the enthusiasm and love for the city and the scene wasn't enough for Peter in the end, and after the 1995 festival, he parted ways with the Halifax Pop Explosion.
It was really depressing. We had this amazing festival that was attracting attention all over the world, and we couldn't survive doing it. So the last festival, we lost money. We didn't have money to lose, so it was all personal money that lost. I certainly left Halifax feeling pretty defeated about the whole thing, and not very happy with my scene, and not very happy with myself, and not very happy with the infrastructure. I needed to get the hell out of Halifax.
By 1995, that young bartender at the Double Deuce had his own record label up and running. When none of his bands made it into the festival, Way started up his own showcase, The No Cases, that same weekend, featuring bands from across the country, including Len and Hip Club Groove.
I ran 14 bands in the Oasis on Spring Garden Road, and we did all ages shows in the old Records on Wheels. And it was weird because we did this great thing, and it was collegial. Once they realized we were doing it, they put our program in the delegate bags at the Pop Explosion.
While Way's No Cases were a great success, the Pop Explosion didn't see the same successes that year, and the festival went out of business. Angie Fenwick, who'd been with the festival from the beginning, wasn't willing to let the festival go so easily.
96, what happened was that Angie called myself and Mark Brown and Colin McKenzie. So the four people who managed bands and ran record labels got together. We formed a company called Proper Productions, and we started the Halifax On Music Festival.
The change in personnel wasn't enough to save the festival.
You know, our unofficial motto is just cool enough to not lose money. And the problem with Halifax On Music is it was so cool it always lost money.
After 3 more years of losing money and employees, Colin made a go of Halifax On Music on his own in 99. But it was the smallest festival since the 93 Pop Explosion, and that marked the end of Halifax On Music. With the future looking bleak with no festival in 2000, Way went to Fredericton to meet with Peter to see what he could do to bring Halifax Pop Explosion back.
Melissa Biot and myself were convinced, like, this is important for the music community. It wasn't about, you know, my band needs it for exposure or anything, and it wasn't about, you know, we think we can make a lot of money, because at that point it had basically gone out of business twice. It was really clear it was never going to make any money. And we were able to relaunch under the original name in 2001 was the first festival. And we thought we had it all figured out. We were not for profit. We're getting government funding. We're doing all this great stuff. And we lost $25,000.
If you ask him about the loss, Way may jokingly blame the emergence of the jam band scene for the failure of 2001. But he learned a great lesson that year. To be very cautious about booking bands outside your immediate competency and not be pressured into trends.
We lost a ton of money. I borrowed money from my parents. We all agreed to work for free and handed back whatever we'd been paid. My business loaned some money to the business, which was ultimately paid back 2 years later. And we limped along. And it took about 4 or 5 years to fully pay off that debt. But it never lost that kind of money again. It's made money some years and broken even some years. And 1 year, I think we lost $5,000.
It's been 10 years since the Pop Explosion re-emerged on the Halifax scene, and Johnny Stevens has now taken over Way's role as the executive director. Johnny's introduction to the Pop Explosion was a bit different from that of Way.
The earliest experience that I had was playing with Gob at what is now the Palooka's Gym, the old Wormwoods Theatre. So playing in front of, you know, like 1,000 people.
From then on, Johnny was always involved with the festival, either playing or attending shows, and then acting as treasurer on the board of directors. He's thrilled to be the executive director and doesn't take the role lightly.
Every morning when I walk into the office, I walk by the wall of awards, accolades, and past posters. And you walk in and you're thinking, like, I'm now responsible for this history and this event. And that's not owned by me or anyone. It's owned by the fans. So really, you don't want to let them down. It's a daunting task, but it's exciting. And, you know, running the festival that you grew up playing and going to is definitely, it's a feeling that I can't quite describe in words. It's pretty amazing. I'm very honored to be part of the history of it.
Throughout the years, the way the Pop Explosion has been programmed has evolved. The early years were more of a curated event. It wasn't something that bands really applied to play, whereas now upwards of 700 applications pour into the office each year from bands in 29 countries around the world. Way says that one thing remains the same. The focus is still the discovery and presentation of the latest new music that's happening in the world as reflected in the local music community.
The focus is still on putting local bands on stage with bands from away who they admire. The difference from before and now is that more than ever, local bands who are the biggest local bands are the headliners. We have a better reach and we can bring in bigger bands, but that inside the core 25 to 30 band festival that was there originally, that's all about new bands you've never heard of, those really cool bands, that's still happening, but there's another 100 bands around it where we can make money to pay for those 30 bands that we're going to lose money on. I actually think music is better in this community and in the world and in Canada than it's ever been in my entire life. I'm 39 and I'm still stoked every day. I'm like, wow, another new band. This is amazing. And I think the festival reflects that.
Johnny wants to make sure the Pop Explosion offers something for everyone.
We're really trying to work on making it an inclusive festival where everybody can come and check it out. There's something for everyone, from the folk, hip-hop, electronica, punk, metal, indie, like all of those genres of music that are not represented right now in some other festivals. We have this festival that buyers and agents and managers and media want to come to. They want to cover it because it's new, it's cutting edge, it's innovative.
While the festival has certainly made a name for itself in Halifax, it is also expanding its reach outside the Maritimes, with showcases at festivals like North by Northeast in Toronto and South by Southwest in Texas. A summer festival, M-Fest in Halifax, is also in the works.
We have a new summer event. It's exciting and unlike anything that's ever happened. It just goes to show, like, your Pop Explosion staff and board are dedicated to you, to the music fan in more ways than you can know. And everything that we do year round is all about kind of bringing focus to our local scene, musicians, providing something to the audience.
He may have just completed his rookie year as executive director, but Johnny's already made a huge impact on the Pop Explosion by introducing an affordable festival wristband, allowing fans access to all shows